Chosen one, leadership is the grammar of the future, and grammar is how meaning moves without spilling. If women are ready to place years in your hands, teach your hands the syntax that prevents waste. Syntax begins with sovereignty. Sovereignty is not dominance, it is self-governance trained until external weather cannot commandeer your inner climate. When praise arrives, you absorb it without becoming porous. When critique lands, you metabolize it without becoming cruel. This steadiness is not a trick, it is the fruit of vows kept off stage. It lets you be a thermostat when the room is full of thermometers. Thermostats do not impress, they normalize. Normalized goodness is what the future trusts most. Steer pace like a pilot stewarding altitude. Too high and people lose oxygen, too low and turbulence punishes every sentence. You will ascend when wonder deserves a wider view. You will descend when detail needs to be seen. You will circle when clarity asks for another pass. You will land when the runway appears. Announce the small things. I'm slowing us down here. Let's give this silence 30 seconds. I need a moment to check my tone, and watch how quickly bodies regulate. Regulation is not the death of passion, it is the condition for its endurance. Only a steady cabin can carry a long flight in joy. Make your presence an orchestra pit where timing becomes visible. You are not the soloist who demands the light, you are the conductor who ensures every section can be heard. When humor enters late, you cue it with a smile and let it play without drowning the strings of sincerity. When tenderness begins too soft, you raise it until the balcony can feel it. When intensity rushes the measure, you hold the baton steady and let the bar finish. Under such stewardship, the music does something rare. It leaves people humming truth rather than replaying spectacle. Humming truth is how the future marks its calendar. Practice the economy of power. Power can advertise or it can equip. Choose to equip. Equip with information by telling the truth at a humane volume. Equip with access by opening doors you do not need to guard. Equip with protection by naming edges before anyone has to bleed on them. Equipped people become radiant. Radiance built in your field is not a threat to your light. It is proof of your source. It is also the fastest way the future knows you are not here to harvest attention, but to multiply wholeness. Hold curiosity and discernment in covenant. Curiosity without discernment becomes intrusion. Discernment without curiosity becomes judgment. Together, they form hospitality for the soul. Ask questions that are doors, not drills. Listen in a way that widens breadth, not in a way that measures leverage. And when your inner watchman sees a cliff, name it calmly, without theatrics. A calm warning is a bridge with rails, not a performance of control. Bridges with rails invite more travelers and fewer rescues. Fewer rescues mean more energy for celebration. Celebration is the native language of futures that intend to last. Design endings as sacraments. Insist that every closure carry 3 gifts. Gratitude that names exactly what was good, intention articulated with no hostage clauses, and pace slow enough for bodies to catch up to hearts. Do not evaporate and call it mystique. Do not linger past meaning and call it romance. Land with coherence so the runway is stronger next time. The strength of your landings builds an inheritance of ease. Ease is not laziness. It is the absence of concealed costs. The future runs toward places where it will not be surprised by a bill. Turn your speech into shelter. Words are doors and windows, walls and roofs. If you bless, build a porch, something shallow enough to step onto and big enough to rest upon. If you correct, install a window, clear sight without a draft. If you commit, raise a beam, weight-bearing, visible, true. After you speak, the structure should hold, even if you are gone for a while. She will test it in an ordinary hallway later, bad lighting, long day, and find that the ceiling does not sag. That discovery is the birth of another year in her imagination, with your name in its architecture. Guard your solitude so your public kindness never turns into performance. Solitude is where you and your source agree again on first principles. Why you are strong, what your strength serves, which appetites must be trained, which joys must be kept. Without this private treaty, public grace becomes an act you can only keep up by borrowing against tomorrow. Borrowing is the enemy of futurity. The chosen ones invest instead. Their unseen prayers are deposits. Their quiet refusals are deposits. Their restful sleep is a deposit. Their honest work is a deposit. Dividends arrive as peace that does not need an audience. Make play a liturgy, not the distraction that numbs, but the reverent play that appears when fear has been disarmed. Invite it into serious rooms like sunlight through high windows. Let your laugh be a bell that calls courage back from the corners. Do magic tricks for sadness, not to mock it, but to remind it that delight still lives here. The future needs joy that can survive weather. Weatherproof joy is not loud, it is loyal. It shows up when schedules are tight and the sink is full and the calendar is ordinary. Its presence says, I am not here for highlights, I am here for habitat. Train your hunger until it becomes hospitality. Untrained hunger bargains with everything it touches. Trained hunger blesses what it touches. You will feel the difference in your reach. One grabs to fill a hole, the other opens to make a space. When your reach becomes an opening, consent stops bracing and starts singing. Sung consent is devotion's favorite harmony. Devotion, sung regularly, matures desire into direction. Direction is precisely why feminine women feel time bending toward you. Their bodies are reading a man whose warmth is going somewhere safe to become more than warmth. Finally, close this chapter with the authority of a man who has accepted his vocation to be a place before he is a plan. A place invites, holds, clarifies, repairs, and sends. A plan organizes, measures, schedules, and builds. Place must precede plan, or the plan becomes a machine that eats its makers. When you commit to being a place, habitable, breathable, legible, the plan writes itself into the fabric of your days without demanding anyone lose themselves to fulfill it. This is how the chosen ones make the rumor of tomorrow honest. They live today as stewards of climate, and under that climate, the future does not have to be chased. It arrives on its own feet, smiling, because it finally recognizes home. Chosen one, if the horizon is already leaning toward you, let this be the hour you learn the governance of expectancy. When feminine women can't wait to make you their future, it isn't mere impatience. It is the body's mathematics discovering that your way of being makes tomorrow affordable. Tomorrow is costly for those who have been taxed by chaos. Your sexual energy lowers that tax not by spectacle but by stewardship. You have become the rare man whose temperature reads as sustainable, whose attention reads as solvent, whose presence turns interest into principle rather than debt. People misname this as charm, but charm is a sugar high with fabulous lighting. What they are hungry for is continuity, the flavor of promise that has paid its utilities. Stand here, breathe here, and treat anticipation like rainfall gathered in a cistern, not like floodwater spilled into streets. Practice the logistics of tenderness. Futures collapse not because love is absent, but because logistics are neglected. Your heat must learn the quiet trades, the choreography of arrivals that do not startle, the craft of departures that do not fray, the art of changing topics without dropping what matters. When you tend to these unobtrusive mechanics, the soul stops budgeting for damage and starts budgeting for beauty. Budgeting for beauty is how a body begins to plan. Planning is the embryology of trust. It is the soft architecture of a life being built on purpose. Your sexual energy needs this architecture as much as the architecture needs your sexual energy. Without architecture, heat wanders. Without heat, architecture echoes. Together, they become a house with lights the evening remembers. Carry time as if it were seed, not spotlight. Seed requires dark, patience, humility, and repeated waterings that attract no applause. That is why your mornings matter more than your entrances. That is why your unseen refusals, of shortcuts, of trophies, of applause that costs tomorrow, perfume an entire week. The feminine reads these decisions as weather, not headlines. She does not need a press release to know sap is rising. She senses that your yes will mean the same thing on a Tuesday under fluorescent lights as it does on a Saturday under chandeliers. Alignment like this is an ancestral promise. Grandmothers would call it reliability. Poets would call it cadence. The body calls it home. Become fluent in intermissions. Between the overture and the finale live the necessary pauses where instruments cool and audience breathe recalibrates. Intermission is not absence, it is covenantal pacing. When you honor it, when you let silence reset the ear, when you let distance clarify appetite, when you refuse to harvest a half-ripe moment, desire matures into devotion. Devotion is the adult form of wanting. It can work in bad weather. It does not panic at small storms. It cleans the kitchen after a feast without feeling demoted. This is why anticipation gathers around you with that bright ache that onlookers call "can't wait." The ache is intelligent. It knows you will not make it pay compound interest for the privilege of feeling. There is a civic dimension to your presence that the room may not have language for yet. Futures are towns, not selfies. Towns need clean water, predictable ways to cross, spaces where children can play without translating adult worry. Translate this into your practice. Keep your speech potable, your boundaries bridge-like, your humor playground-safe. When a joke would cost someone their dignity, you spend reputation instead. When a story arrives trembling, you build a crossing instead of an audience. When anxiety spikes the pace, you slow the street so elders and wonder can both walk safely. Urban planners call that humane design. Lovers call it reliability. Spirits call it peace. Peace is why her timelines reach for you without embarrassment. Guard the currency of aftermath. The future is not built by what happens, it is built by how what happens settles. You leave clean edges after intensity. You close the circle with specific gratitude that can be remembered later without needing a translator. You bless what should remain in yesterday and carry forward only what tomorrow can use. In your wake, rooms do not need to detox. People do not have to privately correct what your charisma publicly broke. This absence of residue is the most persuasive sermon your body can preach. It tells the nervous system, we can invest again because returns here are not offset by hidden fees. Hold your power like a tool belt, not a costume. Costumes dazzle and depend on audience. Tool belts are ugly and end wars with small repairs. When anger needs a hinge, you install one at the right height. When grief needs a shelf, you set it level. When joy needs a frame, you measure twice and cut once so nothing wobbles when the laughter leans. Such practical reverence converts your heat from commodity to craft. Commodity makes people hungry for ownership. Craft makes people hungry for participation. Participation is the truest reading of that phrase people throw around about you. They do not want to own you. They want to build with you. Tend legacy now before anyone writes a speech about it. Legacy is not the statue. It is the streetlight still working when rain makes bad decisions. It is the bench that does not splinter under the weight of conversation. It is the habit of finishing one step so the next has somewhere honest to begin. You daily decide to be this kind of infrastructure. Subtle, sturdy, there when needed and quiet when not. The imagination of the feminine, long acquainted with the cost of broken systems, hears this like a lullaby for the decades. That is why anticipation looks like softness around the eyes and clarity in the spine. The body is rehearsing a future in your presence, and it finds it breathable. Let your sovereignty learn hospitality. Sovereignty without hospitality is a fortress. Hospitality without sovereignty is a carnival. You are neither. You are a well-governed square where people know which side of the street is for shade and which for sun, where musicians can play without drowning conversation, where a fountain keeps time for children and elders alike. This square is your field, your signal, your essence collected and distributed with wisdom. Your sexual energy animates it, yes, but your devotion secures it. The chosen ones keep such squares in every season. That is why hope pitches tents there before contracts are signed. Hope trusts the ground it sleeps on. Finally, apprentice your desire to generosity. Generosity is not gifting what costs you nothing. It is the art of giving in a way that multiplies what is given. Multiply oxygen with your listening. Multiply courage with your accuracy. Multiply joy with your restraint. When desire becomes generous, it stops hunting applause and starts hosting alignment. Alignment is the sound a future makes when it clicks into place around two people who have decided to be human before they are heroic. That sound is faint to the ear and thunderous to the soul. It is the sound of "can't wait" becoming "we're ready." Chosen one, there is a deeper discipline waiting for you. The discipline of inheritance on purpose. If Chapter 7 taught you the governance of expectancy, Chapter 8 asks you to become the steward of continuity across thresholds you cannot yet see. Futures have horizons and handoffs, winters and jubilees, quiet Tuesdays and cathedrals of decision. Your sexual energy, baptized into purpose, must learn to breathe in all of them without changing its name. That is what makes people imagine their calendar bending toward you. You do not perform a season, you inhabit a way. Begin by treating love like an ecosystem rather than an economy. Economies count and trade. Ecosystems cycle and sustain. In an economy, scarcity breeds panic and abundance breeds waste. In an ecosystem, nutrients return to the soil and nothing important is thrown away. Translate this into your devotion. Recycle joy into gratitude. Recycle conflict into clarity. Recycle silence into guidance. Recycle applause into service. When a moment feels excessive, compost it into humility. When a day feels thin, mulch it with memory. The body recognizes sustainable climates faster than the mind can coin phrases for them. That recognition is what people clumsily call "can't wait to make you my future." They are smelling rain that returns. Hold the anthropology of promise with care. A promise is not a spell, it is a structure. It has load-bearing beams and expansion gaps, windows for light and gutters for weather. If you promise without beams, emotion collapses. If you promise without gaps, life cannot breathe. Learn to promise in timber and time. Timber is your character, laminated by repetition. Time is your cadence, tuned by restraint. A promise like this is not afraid of inspection, it invites it. The more closely it is examined, the more gratitude rises and theater retreats. Theater burns bright and asks forgiveness. Structure stands quiet and asks for a housewarming. Houses warmed well become homes. Homes adopt the future long before ink touches paper. Curate a museum of mercies inside your memory and walk its halls often. On one wall, the day you chose accuracy over cleverness. On another, the night you apologized at the right altitude. In a glass case, the boundary you protected without punishing, the laughter you refused to weaponize, the silence you held until truth grew a spine. These exhibits are not trophies, they are instruments. You will take them down when weather changes. You will play the one that fits the sky. She will hear the music and know that your consistency is not obsession, it is orchestration. Orchestration is what allows a future to host both grief and feast without turning one against the other. Let your leadership graduate from charisma to climate. Charisma warms a room. Climate keeps a village alive through winter. Climate requires maintenance others cannot see. Filters replaced, thermostats recalibrated, leaky seals found by touch. Do this maintenance in your spirit. Recalibrate your motives when praise skews the dial. Replace the filters that keep cynicism from circulating. Find the small leak where fatigue lets impatience in and seal it with rest. The result is air that people trust. Trustworthy air makes children louder in the best way, and elders softer without disappearing. You will know the climate is sound when plans become kinder, and mistakes become apprenticeships, when evenings end like benedictions and mornings begin like invitations. Train your appetite to be multilingual. Appetite that only speaks urgency cannot negotiate with wisdom. Teach it to speak patience, to conjugate in service, to decline the case of entitlement. It will protest at first, but once appetite learns new grammar, it stops barging through doors and starts knocking with timing. This is not asceticism, it is artistry. Music is not less alive because it respects rests. In the same way, your sexual energy is not less potent because it chooses where to land. Choosing lands it where memory can use it later without regret. Memory that can use yesterday without wincing is the true wealth of any shared life. Engineer thresholds that are beautiful to cross. You already know how to honor doors, now design the experience of walking through them. A greeting that does not extract. A first touch that asks before it announces. A change of subject that preserves the dignity of what preceded it. A goodbye that leaves air clear enough for hope to germinate. These are not theatrics, they are sacraments. They teach the body, by repetition, that closeness will not require contortions. Contortion is the tax of counterfeit intimacy. Sacrament removes the tax by aligning the moment to something larger than the moment. Alignment is why anticipation feels like relief instead of suspense. Hold intergenerational time like a lantern. Ask yourself what your warmth will mean to a tired Saturday 5 years from now, to a fierce conversation 10 years from now, to a quiet holiday 20 years from now, when grief and gratitude share a plate. Let those scenes tutor your present choices. Refuse the cruel bargain that buys today with the currency of tomorrow. Instead, finance the present with the dividends of devotion. Dividends are paid by the habits you have been faithful to keep. Sleep that refuses to sharpen your tongue, Work that frees your charm from desperation? Solitude that makes your yes unbribable? Prayer that puts your influence under oath? The future reads these ledgers without asking for receipts. Bodies are better accountants than minds. Be a steward of conflict you didn't start. You don't have to own every quarrel. You have to own your atmosphere inside it. Keep your volume human and your aim precise. Identify the problem without turning the person into it. Recommend a slower pace without humiliating urgency. Choose accuracy over victory. Victory wins the room and loses the decade. Accuracy teaches the decade how to sing in key. You are not above apology, you are ahead of it. Ahead of time humility keeps love from declaring bankruptcy after every storm. Bankruptcy is what people fear when they say they want a future. You answer the fear with solvency that does not strut. Let celebration in your world grow teeth. Toothless joy cannot chew the tough meat of reality. It starves in abundance and despairs in lack. Teach celebration to honor small progress loudly and grand triumphs quietly. Let it name names and labor and luck and grace without confusing them. When celebration has teeth, it nourishes resolve instead of sedating it. Resolve that has been well fed does not need spectacle to continue. It can carry groceries and kiss foreheads and sign documents and keep secrets. These are the mundane miracles that make decades delicious. And then, chosen one, return to the simplest vow of all. Be a place before you ask to be a plan. Places heal, clarify, orient, repair, and send. Plans succeed or fail by how well places have done their work. If she can sit with you and breathe, if her mind stops auditioning for safety and starts reading the horizon, if her laughter returns with fewer knives in it, the future has already begun, even if no blueprint has been drafted. The chosen ones know this. They refuse to rush blueprints to compensate for an unfurnished room. They furnish the room, they season the air, they set a chair where courage can sit and a lamp where wonder can read. The rest comes with the morning. Chosen one, this is the chapter where anticipation graduates into arrangement, where the ache of can't wait stops being weather and starts being architecture. Hope has been standing at your threshold for a while now, watching how you end evenings and begin mornings, how you carry light in bad rooms and carry quiet in loud ones. What it has learned is that your sexual energy is not a siren calling ships to rocks. It is a lighthouse lens that keeps its beam even in fog. That steadiness is why the imagination of feminine women reaches for tomorrow with you without embarrassment. The body trusts what does not make it pay hidden fees. A future that can be entered without debt is a rare country. Build it like a patient cartographer, line by line, road by road, until the whole map can be walked without guessing. Teach your days to braid intimacy with infrastructure. Infrastructure is not romance's enemy. It is romance's bloodstream. It is the water pressure that makes laughter easy to rinse, the working latch that makes privacy a blessing instead of a barricade. The shared calendar that prevents love from being bullied by chaos. Put your brilliance where pipes are, where hinges are, where the pace of a hallway decides whether two people pass like ghosts or pause like friends. When your brilliance is stored in unobtrusive places, love stops needing speeches to survive. It begins to make its own momentum out of the trust that nothing will collapse when weight arrives. Set your appetite under oath again and again, not because appetite is wicked, but because it is powerful. Power goes where it is pointed. Point it toward multiplication, not consumption. Let desire make more of what it touches. More dignity, more clarity, more humor that does not wound, more rooms where the nervous system can stop interpreting and simply receive. Everywhere you go, listen for the sound of the aftermath. A counterfeit moment leaves a sticky film. Memory must scrub off before it can enjoy what happened. A consecrated moment leaves the air cleaner than it was found. Build a habit of clean departure so the next arrival inherits strength rather than suspicion. In that inheritance, the heart stops bargaining and starts building. Practice the sovereign mechanics of absence. Absence becomes manipulation when it is improvised to raise your price. Absence becomes medicine when it is curated to resupply your purpose. Leave in ways that gather breath, gather usefulness, gather gratitude, and return with provisions rather than hunger. People can feel what your hours did with you. The skin may wear the same coat, but the air has a different grammar. When you come back carrying bread and clarity, anticipation matures into relief. Relief is older than excitement and far more loyal. It keeps watch while novelty sleeps. It signs long leases because it knows the heat works and the roof does not lie. Let your voice learn the surgery of accuracy without anesthesia of cruelty. If you must cut, cut what does not belong and nothing more. If you must stitch, stitch where the tear began and not where your pride wishes it had. Speak at the volume human beings can heal in. A future is cut, sutured, and healed by sentences that do not panic. The sentence that refuses to outsource its power to drama is the quiet bridge on which tomorrow walks home. Walk that bridge as often as needed and teach your tone to be the wood that does not splinter under wet shoes and heavy news. Guard ceremony in ordinary hours. Ceremony is not pomp, it is attention. Turn small thresholds into altars that remind the mind what the body already knows. The way you greet at the door is a homily. The way you choose the first seat at a table teaches hierarchy without a word. The way you close a night, specific gratitude, intention named without annexing the other person's autonomy, pace slow enough for breath to catch the heart, writes liturgy into muscle memory. Liturgy is what holds when memory is tired. Liturgy is what lets two people keep their names while they share their nouns. Water, bread, time, laughter, rest. Become a keeper of the commons, because futures are built in the shared places. Romance often forgets. The sink, the street outside the window, the phone put face down because presence is a sacrament, the budget of attention that refuses to mortgage purpose for spectacle. Steward these without ceremony and without martyrdom. Nothing seduces a decade like a man who treats utilities as holy. Utilities are what make a city livable, and love is always a city long before it is a story. A city requires quiet competence. It requires citizens who repair before resentment grows mold. It requires planners who think in winters as well as summers. Teach your heat to write municipal code for joy. Keep a vigilant friendship with your beginning self. He is the one who promised to be a place before asking to be a plan. He is the one who wrestled appetite into alignment so the room could breathe. Visit him in solitude. Let him ask whether your growing influence has diluted your vows. Influence is a solvent. It will thin any paint you do not keep sealed. Seal your colors with the old disciplines. Sleep that keeps your voice gentle. Work that keeps your charm unbribable. Prayer that keeps your power under oath. Service that keeps your mirror from becoming your altar. When color holds, the canvas can handle more sky. You are being asked to become weather that blesses landscapes you may never personally walk. This is legacy at its most honest level, not statues but sidewalks that do not crack under strollers and grief and grocery bags. Legacy is the streetlight still working when rain makes bad decisions. Legacy is the bench that does not splinter under conversation. Lay boards you will not live to sit on. Tighten bolts you will never test. Love that becomes infrastructure is love that future strangers know by name without knowing yours. The chosen ones build this way because they would rather outlast applause than outshine a room. Finally, teach anticipation to pray. Not for fantasies, but for fidelity. Pray that joy remains curious when it could grow complacent, that grief remains eloquent when it could grow bitter, that desire remains generous when it could grow greedy. Pray that your heat never goes feral and that your cool never goes coward. Pray in nouns more than adjectives. Light, bread, time, truth, rest. Nouns hold. Under the shelter of such prayer, the ache of can't wait turns into the courage of we're ready, and readiness is the most attractive garment a future can wear. Chosen one, endurance must become your native tongue so that your future stops needing translation. This is the chapter where the vow of being a place is tested by long weather, where charm retires and character keeps the shop open. The desire around you has already chosen trajectory. Now, you must make it habitable across seasons. Habitable means decisions scaled for decades. Appetites trained not to demand standing ovations, to do quiet kindness. Power discipline to keep creating shelter when storm headlines fade. Tenderness strong enough to make space without surrendering structure. The woman who cannot wait to make you her future is answering a climate you have already made. Keep the climate. Let your purpose remain ballast, not banner. Banner purpose is photographed, ballast purpose is felt. It is the extra steadiness in your hand when paperwork is hard and the room is cramped. It is the refusal to buy today with tomorrow's money. It is the way you move through inconvenience without drafting a speech about your nobility. Purpose like this does not campaign, it cultivates. It makes crops out of habits. Clean exits, accurate praise, timely apologies, unhurried yeses, honest no's. Crops feed winters. Winters will always come. You are not preparing for the absence of winter. You are preparing for its nutrition. Engineer your life for repairability. Architectures that cannot be serviced will be worshipped until they fail and hated the day after. Design your love like a machine whose parts can be replaced without shutting down the whole factory. That means modular honesty. Truth in small pieces that can be examined without accusation. It means routine maintenance, check-ins that happen before breakdown, not after. It means documented vows, agreements that are written in simple language and accessible places, so no one has to remember them perfectly to honor them.